Shalom, shalom. Welcome to Supporting Yah's Cornerstone. My name is Heshra. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the question, are you married? Which may sound like a simple question, but oftentimes it becomes a complicated question depending on how a person defines marriage, or what defines marriage for them. What God is a person serving, because a lot of these things, when we think about cultural practices, culture, tradition, oftentimes defines things for us. What God we're serving also sometimes dictates our beliefs also. So that's what complicates that question. Why did I make this a part of the adultery series? Because when it comes to the serving Yahweh and the Hebrew Israelite lifestyle, and then a lot of us come from different thought patterns and different cultural practices and patterns, then sometimes we end up committing adultery without knowledge, because how we define marriage in our mind may still be according to cultural practices and laws that have nothing to do with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so that's why I made this a part of the adultery series, and definitely we understand that when we're working to build our relationship with Yahweh and to reestablish a good, righteous relationship with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, then we know that every decision we make either works toward that or doesn't. And we know that when we commit adultery, that's working against our relationship with Yah. That it doesn't work toward us building with Him, that it works against that. And so we don't want to do that. And if we have done that, we want to repent of that and start over the right way, or move forward in the right way, in the righteous way. When you see me look down, I'm just looking down at my notes. So many women and so many people have committed adultery just due sometimes to the lack of knowledge. And also it's important to get an understanding of how Yahweh sees marriage. What is His expectation? How has He defined it within the law and the Hebrew Israelite culture? And so just today, I'm just going to briefly go to a few scriptures just to lay a foundation in your mind for that, of Yah's thoughts or the cultural practices within the Hebrew Israelite lifestyle that kind of define that for us. Before I get started on that, I think it's important to say that within the Western culture, that is so many practices that encourage or lay a foundation for us to commit adultery very easily without having any feeling about it. Just the boyfriend-girlfriend system itself sets us up for that, because most of us grew up as a part of Western culture, or if you live within the United States, a lot of us grew up doing boyfriend-girlfriend. And within that, we were oftentimes in and out of relationships, which kind of sets you up, one, for practicing whoredom, and then it also sets you up for commonly practicing committing adultery without thinking of it in that way. Because it gives you the impression that you can it allows you to go in and out of relationships very, very easily. And everything that goes along with that you're not respecting the Creator. We didn't respect the Creator when those of us who practiced that. We didn't respect our parents, which according to Hebrew Israelite culture, which a lot of us probably didn't even know about, then our parents weren't even aware of a lot of times, or of what young man we were involved with, or man we were involved with, or any of that. We know that oftentimes in Western culture, a woman can be sexually active, not only in a relationship, but sexually active and get pregnant, and a parent may find all that out within 1 hour or one day, when they may be thinking to themselves, well, I didn't even know she was seeing anybody, let alone having sex, and that as a baby, you know. So, but that's very common practice in Western society. So, what becomes an important question is, what is or was required by Yah's law and the Hebrew culture for a couple to be considered married? Or what we're really going to touch on here is, what do we see? I'm going to touch on just a few examples, and we'll see what we see in those stories. And then I will leave it up to you to go to your concordance, or you can Google, marriage in the Old Testament, or you can go in the concordance and look up marriage and go over all the scriptures in the Old Testament where the Creator speaks, where he's speaking to Moses, he's speaking to his prophets, or you see different servants of Yah in the Old Testament, and when they married a woman or took a woman as a wife, what did they do? And if they were men of Yah, then, or prophets of Yah, or people that serve Yah, you're definitely going to see a pattern there of how they married. And either it included marriage certificates or marriage licenses, either it included engagement rings, or it didn't. So you'll get a chance to see that. What was Yah? How did Yah? Did he tell any of his prophets or priests that someone had to come before a priest? Was that a part of the law? I haven't seen it. I have never heard of it in the Old Testament, where Yah speaks mouth to mouth a lot of times with his prophets and priests within the Old Testament. So first, let's go to the first couple that we hear about in the Old Testament, which is Adam and Eve. So we'll go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 21 through 23. Genesis chapter 2, verse 21 through 23. And it says, "And Yah caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which Yah had taken from man made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh." So we don't see where Yah required Adam and Eve to come before him and say any vow to each other at all. So we don't see that at all. And so that was the perfect opportunity for Yah to say, not only do they leave their father and mother's home to become one flesh, but he could have also said they also need to be sure to stand before a priest. But we don't see that. He could have also taken the time to say, well, you need a marriage license, but you don't see that either. He could have also taken the time to say, be sure to get an engagement ring, but that's not spoken of either. Next, we're going to look at Abraham. Now, one of the beautiful things about the story of Abraham is what Yah said about him in Genesis 18, chapter 18, verse 19. And it says, "For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of God to do justice and judgment, that that God may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him. And so what the Creator was saying, of course, was that he trusted that Abraham would pattern his life after him, after his commandments, and that Abraham would make sure that his family did the same thing. So let's take a look at, we know Abraham had more than one child. We know he had more than one son, but we're going to take a look at his son Isaac and see how he went about dealing with Isaac getting married. And we know that one of Abraham's top concerns in his life was being pleasing unto the Creator, being pleasing unto Yahweh, the God of him and the God that created Adam and Eve, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So we're going to take a look at that, and we'll go to Genesis chapter 24, verse 2 through 4. And I'll start at verse 1, chapter 24, verse 1. And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. So for the sake of understanding, I'm just going to go ahead and use the word Lord and God just for the sake of understanding, so it won't get too confusing by me saying Yah in its place. And Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house that ruled over all that he had, Put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and I will make thee swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of the earth, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughter of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell. But thou shalt go unto my country and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac. So he tells his servant this, and he's arranging it that his son, he can obtain a wife for his son. He doesn't mention, be sure when you go that there's a priest nearby, so they can be sure to go by a temple and say vows or anything. You don't hear anything like that coming out of Abraham's mouth. And if you read the whole of chapter 24, you will not see that. So we'll stay in the same chapter and go to verses 50 and 51. So we're still in Genesis chapter 24. We're in verses 50 and 51. And it says, Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, The thing proceeded from the Lord. We cannot speak unto thee good or bad. Behold, Rebekah is before thee. Take her and go, and let her be thy master's son's wife, as the Lord has spoken. And so we see that Rebekah's kin people were okay with her going. You can read this entire chapter. It's a good chapter to read the entirety of it. And it goes on to say, And it came to pass that when Abraham's servant heard their words, he worshipped the Lord, bowing himself to the earth. And the servant brought forth jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment, and gave them to Rebekah. He gave also to her brother and her mother precious things. So you don't hear anything. You see that the servant gave gifts to Rebekah and to her mother and to her brother. You don't hear anything about some kind of engagement ring requirement, or be sure once again to stop by a priest's house or a temple or anything. You don't see anything like that mentioned here. You do hear where the servant is obtaining permission from the family. Genesis chapter, and before I move forward, the majority of the time permission will be given from the Father. Genesis chapter 24, 63, verses 63 through 67. Genesis chapter 24, verse 63 through 67. And it says, "And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the eventide. And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, the camels were coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she lighted off the camel. For she had said unto the servant, What man is this that walketh in the field to meet us? And the servant had said, It is my master. Therefore she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all things that he had done. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted after his mother's death." So you don't hear anything said or mentioned about them standing before a priest or getting a marriage license or even having a wedding ceremony or even any type of engagement ring. But you see where Isaac and Abraham and the servant and her kindred all understood that Rebekah was about to be Isaac's wife. That was understood without any ceremonies, without any licenses once again, and without any rings. The only time you see a couple have to go before a priest is when, or as it pertains to the law of jealousy. When a husband is jealous over his wife and he thinks that she has been sexually active with another man, or when he feels like she has committed adultery. So the Creator put a law in place where he can find out whether it's true or not. Because oftentimes we know when people commit adultery, they do it in secret. So the understanding behind the law is to create something where if it was done in secret and there are no witnesses to it, then there's a way for the husband to find out. So this is where you see a man and a woman go before a priest, not to get married because they are already married. They're there just to check on whether she has committed adultery or not, whether what the husband feels to be true, whether it's actually true or not. So you go to Numbers chapter 5, verse 11 through 16. And it says, "And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, If any man's wife go aside and commit a trespass against him, and a man lie with her carnally, and it be hid from the eyes of her husband, and be kept close, and she be defiled, and there be no witness against her, neither she be taken with the manner, and the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be defiled. Or if the spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he be jealous of his wife, and she be not defiled, then shall the man bring his wife unto the priest, and he shall bring her offering for her. The 10th part of an ephah of barley meal, he shall pour no oil upon it, nor put frankincense thereon, for it is an offering of jealousy, an offering of memorial, bringing iniquity to remembrance." And so this is, let me see if I need to go down. Yeah, this is when one of the only scriptures where you see a law that requires a man and a woman go before a priest. And once again, they were already married. They're going there to just get a question answered, to see if she committed adultery or not. So this has nothing to do with them getting married. And it's one of the only scriptures in the Old Testament where you're going to see in the law where Yah tell a man and a woman to go before a priest to do anything concerning their marriage. And it has nothing to do with them being married. I want to share something with you, and the reason why I wanted to share it because it's relating to the topic, and it broke the topic down so simply and gave it it was very brief, but online on a website by anabaptistworld.org. They had a small article concerning what we're talking about, marriage and protocols as it comes to whether a couple is considered marriage. And I liked it because it was just so brief and to the point, and for the most part it was true. And it says, marriage in the Bible simply consisted of a man and a woman with the consent of the woman's father or guardian living together and attempting procreation. No vows, no priest, no ritual, no prayer, no pronouncement, no license, no registration. This is quite different from how we define and enact marriage today. Today, for a marriage to be real, it must be legal. In other words, it must be recognized by the laws of the state and registered with the state. Also, for many Christians, a marriage is not a Christian marriage unless it is officiated by a credentialed minister who makes a verbal pronouncement, preferably in the presence of the congregation. And so it goes on to say, when the Catholic Church started to institute or set into place people standing before a priest. Now remember, now we're talking about a separate thing that has nothing to do with Yahweh, that has nothing to do with Hebrew culture, or something that Yahweh required, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It has nothing to do with a requirement of his. But I really like how they worded that, because it was brief, it was to the point, and basically true. You just don't see that in the Old Testament, where any type of license or standing before a priest was required. That is not a part of Hebrew Israelite culture or any law of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. When I look down, I'm just looking down at my notes. And another thing to take note of is that you can tell by the law in Numbers chapter 5 that the Creator is very detailed. You know, he has the ability to break down these laws and his requirements and what he wants. So if he wanted to make marriage licenses and wedding ceremonies a part of a couple being recognized as husband and wife, then he would have done so. Why does this become so important? It's because if you're married, but you believe you're not married because you didn't have a wedding ceremony, you didn't have an engagement ring, you don't have a marriage license. If that's what you believe, and you say, well, but you've been sexually active with somebody and supposedly in a committed relationship with a man, but you believe that because these things that happen that you're not, so for whatever reason you move on to another man, then that becomes an issue in your relationship with the Creator. Because in the eyes of Yah, either you were the other man's wife or you were his whore. There's only two things that you can be in the eyesight of Yah when you are sexually active with a man. You're either in a committed relationship as his wife, or you're in an act of whoredom. And I'm not saying that to be offensive to anybody. I'm just stating that as a fact. Now, a part of the lives we've lived, a lot of us here in Western culture, it's just commonplace. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, I've already done these things. A lot of us have. You have to repent of it and move forward in a righteous way. That's part of what this is about. If you haven't gone down those roads, then my encouragement to you is don't. Once again, if you have, it's about repenting of it and moving forward in a righteous way. And at the end of the day, it's important to remember, it doesn't matter. A lot of things, especially when it comes to Yah and the law, it doesn't matter what our thought is about it. What matters is Yah's law and his thought about it. because that's what our lives are going to be affected by. It's so many, especially with Hebrew Israelites. Our community is suffering so much. And when I say our community, I'm speaking of the so-called African American community as a whole. So much of our lives are troubled because a lot of us are not aware that we're sinning against the Creator, or we don't accept it, or we don't know. But regardless of whether we accept it, and that some of us, we don't know, our community is definitely being affected by us not keeping the law of Yah. We're being affected by it. So what am I saying? For those of us who do know, like me, it's certain laws I do know about, and that I know that I need to do. There's certain ways that I know I need to be or not be. I'm aware of it. And Yah has an expectation, knowing that I know. He expects me to do my best to apply the things that I'm learning and to do those things. But let's say for the person, whether you know or don't know, whether you accept or don't accept, Yahweh, it affects our life, either in a good way or a bad way. And that's what a lot of what we see within our communities. When I say communities now, I'm speaking in general with our communities as a whole, with a lot of our people not knowing Yah still, and some that know but won't accept it. If Yah considers you married and you consider yourself not married, then the results are going to be according to His thought, not yours. And so that's important, and that's kind of across the board in different topics. So it's so important that that we know Yah's law, and sometimes you have to pray to be able to accept it, because a lot of the things we learned are very ingrained within us, and we have a strong belief system for it, whatever it was. So it can take time. The acceptance part can take time. But my point is, in this whole video, is that ceremonies, marriage licenses, and engagement rings, and all these things have absolutely nothing to do in determining whether you're married or not. If you're in a sexual relationship with a man, you're either his wife or his whore. That's about it. That's all you can be, according to the Hebrew Israelite lifestyle and Yah's law. I'm not saying that to be hurtful at all. Once again, it's just a fact. Once again, if you found yourself in this position where maybe you misstepped because you didn't know, or maybe you misstepped but you did know, but you didn't accept, I would encourage you just to repent and move forward in a righteous way. I thank you for watching this video. Please consider subscribing to this channel. I would like you to subscribe to the channel. Please hit the like button. All these things help to increase the chances of more women that might need to see the video, that they see it. And thank you for your time. Shalom, shalom.